Part 1: Camper in California. I was 8 the summer the camper showed up. Not parked, not abandoned, just appearing, like it had been dropped there in the middle of the night by something that didn't want to be seen doing it. Willow Creek was the kind of neighborhood people bragged about. White trimmed houses, perfect lawns, dogs with bandanas, sprinklers that clicked in rhythm. Nobody locked their doors. Nobody questioned the slow crawl of UPS trucks or the morning joggers or the ice cream van that played music 3 keys too slow. But the camper didn't belong to any of that. It was old and silver, the kind of aluminum that still held dents from another decade. One of the back tires was half flat and the passenger side had a long rust scar shaped like a lightning bolt. The windows were covered with baking paper from the inside, taped down so tightly not a single inch of darkness leaked out. I remember the exact date it arrived, June 14th. The first day of summer break. The first day Mom gave us $5 each, smiled, and said, "Go buy candy. Be home before the streetlights come on. And don't talk to strangers." We nodded. We always nodded. But she never said, "Don't look inside strangers' campers." Maybe because in Willow Creek, that possibility seemed as fictional as werewolves or ghosts. Madison, my big sister, age 11 and already convinced she was an adult, grabbed my hand and dragged me down the sidewalk. "Come on, Ellie. If we don't leave now, the Circle K will sell out of the sour worms." I followed, ponytail bouncing, $5 balled tight in my fist. The walk was always the same. Down our street, past the lilac bushes, past Mr. Domer's blue mailbox, past the house with the St. Bernard that always slept like it was dead. 7 minutes exactly to the convenience store. But that day, there was something new sitting on the curb between house 128 and 130. The camper. I slowed down first. Madison didn't notice until the second time I tugged her arm. "Come on, Elle, what are you doing?" I didn't answer at first. Because on the door of the camper was a drawing. A piece of white paper, curling at the edges, taped in 4 perfect corners. The picture was of a baby. But not a normal one. Its head was too big, like a balloon. Its eyes bulged out, drawn as circles shaded so dark they looked wet. Its mouth was open, huge, stretched, wrong. And below the picture, in smudged brown pencil, one word. Soon. The paper looked stained, not with paint, not with dirt, something darker. Something that had dried unevenly. I didn't know what dried blood looked like then. But later, I would. Madison swallowed. Her voice dropped into the level she only used when she was scared, but didn't want me to know. "Don't look at it. Just walk." She squeezed my hand and pulled harder. But I kept looking. Because I had the thick, buzzing feeling in my stomach, the one kids feel when something is wrong, even if no adult has explained it yet. The air felt too still. The street suddenly too quiet. And then, a sound. A soft thud. From inside the camper. Like someone had dropped something. Or taken a step. I froze. So did Madison. We didn't move. Not for 5 seconds. Not for 10. Then, just when we convinced ourselves we imagined it, the door clicked. Unlocked from the inside. And slowly, the camper door swung open. He didn't come out at first. Just stood there, filling the shadow of the doorway. When he finally stepped into the light, everything inside me screamed wrong. He was tall, but hunched like a marionette with cut strings. Beard long, matted, streaked with something dark that looked like old rust. 7 layers of clothing, all torn and filthy, even though it was 103 degrees outside. His eyes were the worst part. Not just black, but empty. Like pupils swallowed the rest. And as soon as the sun hit his face, he did something that made my skin crawl in a way I didn't understand until years later. He sniffed. Not like a person. Like a dog catching scent. Long inhale. Jaw twitching. Breath shaking. As if smelling us told him everything he needed to know. Madison's hand crushed mine. "Ellie," she whispered. Run. But I didn't move. Because he smiled. Not with his mouth. With his teeth. Crooked, brown, jaw too wide for his head, like someone had pulled his face into an expression a human shouldn't be able to make. Then he started walking. Not fast. Not slow. But wrong, a limp, a drag, like one leg didn't belong to him at all. Scratch. Step. Scratch. Step. Madison didn't wait. She screamed. Run. And we did. I heard him behind us first. Not his footsteps, something else. Like paper tearing. Like fabric shedding. And then the sound changed. Suddenly not dragging. Not limping. A full sprint. Footsteps exploding against pavement. Fast. Too fast. I looked back once. The limp was gone. His spine was straight. His legs were pumping like a sprinter from the Olympics. He wasn't chasing like an old man. He was hunting. Like something young wearing something old. Madison yanked me forward, but my legs were shorter and slower and my throat was already burning. Faster, Ellie, faster. The houses smeared past us. The heat hit like fire in my lungs. And then, the gate. Grandma and Grandpa's house. We didn't knock. Didn't shout. We burst in. Mom always said to close the door behind us. We didn't. The door slammed against the wall, wide open, sunlight cutting into the hallway. I didn't hear his footsteps anymore. I didn't hear anything. Except my heartbeat. Madison locked the second door lock. The one only she could reach. She whispered, breath shaking. He was pretending. The limp. The walk. He wanted us to think he couldn't run. I wanted to ask how she knew that, but there wasn't time. Because out the window, through the slats of the blinds, the street was empty. The camper was still there. Door open like a mouth. But the man. Gone. Vanished. Like he melted into the street. That night, police came. They knocked on the camper. No response. They opened it. They didn't let us see inside. But one officer walked out white as plaster, shaking his head. The camper was towed away around 1 a.m. By morning, it was like it had never existed. Except for one thing. One detail the police didn't mean for us to see, but we did. Inside the camper were 13 drawings. All the same deformed baby. All taped neatly in rows. And under each drawing, a child's real name. Kids from our neighborhood. Kids who walked that sidewalk. Kids who bought candy from Circle K. One of the names was spelled in crooked brown pencil, bottom row, center. Ellie Carter, age 8. My name. My age. Already written. Already waiting. The police didn't let us stay in the living room while they searched the camper. They guided us into the kitchen, poured water we didn't drink, and spoke in voices just quiet enough that we couldn't hear the bad parts. But kids don't need the words. Kids feel the fear. I remember the way Officer Ramirez kept one hand on his gun even after he knew the camper was empty. I remember the way Grandma held her rosary, whispering faster each time someone raised their voice outside. And I remember Madison sitting completely still, eyes unfocused, like she was replaying every second of the chase frame by frame, looking for the moment we almost died. The adults thought the danger was over because the door was locked and the sun was still up. They were wrong. Around 9 p.m., the police finally left. Not because they were done, but because they were tired. That was the first time I noticed something about adults. They treat fear like a shift they can clock out of. But monsters don't. Mom arrived minutes later, face white, hair half done, still in her work clothes. She hugged us too hard, asked the same questions twice, then turned on Grandpa. Why weren't you watching them? Why didn't you call me sooner? It wasn't fair, but grief always needs somewhere to land, even before anything has been lost. We tried to tell her about the way he ran. The way he pretended to limp. The baby drawings. The word soon. But she kept shaking her head. Don't exaggerate. He was just a homeless man. The police will handle it. Madison didn't raise her voice, but the sentence she said next is burned into my memory. Mom. He chased us? Not followed. Not approached. Chased? Mom didn't answer. She just closed her eyes and exhaled slow, like she was trying to breathe the story smaller. Adults don't understand that some truths grow when you breathe. That night, we slept in the guest room together. Door locked. Hall light on. Madison pretended to fall asleep first, but I could feel the muscles in her arm twitching under my cheek. I didn't close my eyes for a long time. Because something felt wrong. Not just scary, unfinished. The kind of wrong that feels like a door left open. And then I heard it. A sound so soft I wouldn't have noticed it if every nerve in my body wasn't already awake. Paper. Moving. Fluttering. Like drawings being peeled off a surface. I froze. The sound wasn't inside the room. It was outside. In the street. I slipped out of bed, crept to the window, and very slowly, with 2 fingers, opened the blinds just enough to see. The street was empty. The camper was still there. But the police tape was gone. And taped to the outside of the camper now were more drawings. Not just one. Dozens. The same deformed baby. But this time, written under the newest picture, in letters so big they almost tore through the page. You ran. And underneath, in smaller letters. Good. My breath locked in my throat. Because that meant 2 things. He had come back. And he had expected us not to escape. I woke Madison up, shaking her. She looked once out the window and went dead pale. Wait, Mom. Now. But when we went to find her, she wasn't on the couch anymore. She was outside. Talking to a police car. We ran out barefoot, yelling, pointing. But by the time we looked back at the street, the camper was gone. Not just moved. Gone. Like someone had hooked it to a truck and driven off with the lights off, rolling silent into the night. Not a skid mark. Not a paper left behind. The only proof it had ever existed was inside my head. And inside the police evidence locker. The next morning, Willow Creek pretended nothing happened. The HOA sent a group email reminding residents not to overreact to transient vagrancy. Mr. Dahmer sprayed his driveway like it had caught a disease. Some of the kids asked us what it was like to almost get kidnapped. Some pretended not to care. Some compared it to a movie. Nobody understood what made it real. Not the chase. Not the drawings. Not the smile. It was something smaller. The way he waited. Like he wasn't planning one event. He was planning a process. That night, 2 detectives came back to the house. They didn't bring uniforms this time. Just folders. Thick ones. They sat us down and asked if we wanted the truth even if it was upsetting. Madison said yes immediately. I said nothing. The detective opened the folder. Inside were photos, taken from inside the camper. 13 drawings in rows. All the same child, head too large, mouth warped. But the names under them. That was the part that made Mom cover her mouth. Every child was from our neighborhood. Every name matched a real kid. Some were toddlers. Some were teenagers. Some we knew. Some we hadn't met. All alive. All, for now. Then the detective flipped to the last page. A photo of the final drawing. Mine. Ellie Carter 8. Underlined twice. Written before he ever saw me. Before I ever walked past the camper. Before he ever chased us. Like I was already on a list. Like I was assigned. I remember the detective saying, We don't think he draws random kids. We think he chooses them. I remember Mom whispering. Chooses them for what? No one answered. Because they didn't know. Or they did, but couldn't say it out loud. That was the end, officially. Case closed. Camper gone. Report filed. Detectives out of leads. Kids safe again. Except safety doesn't return just because adults say it should. I waited every night for the sound of wheels on asphalt. For paper on the window. For the camper to return. It never did. But the drawings did. Sometimes taped to street signs. Sometimes crumpled in gutters. Sometimes folded and slipped into doors. Always the same baby. Always the same brown lines. Never the name he wanted. Not until the last one, years later. The one I found in the mailbox the night before I left for college. No baby this time. Just words. You grew. But I don't stop drawing. And underneath, freshly written in the same brown pencil. See you soon, Ellie. People like to say kids forget the scary things. They don't. They just learn how to carry them silently so adults stop asking questions. I grew up. The police stopped checking in. Neighbors stopped whispering. Life moved forward the way life always does, by pretending the past is smaller than it really was. But some things never shrank. The drawings. The sprinting. The smile that didn't belong to a human face. My name already written before he ever saw me. Those stayed the same size. Maybe bigger. By high school, the camper story had turned into a campfire joke. Run before the scribbler gets you. Kids laughed. I laughed sometimes too. Because it's easier to mock a monster than admit it still feels close enough to breathe on your neck. But Madison didn't laugh. She got quiet. Obsessive. She locked doors twice. Never walked home the same way twice. She taped paper over every window in her room. And when I asked her once, "Do you think he's gone?" she didn't even blink. He doesn't stop until he finishes a list. That was the first time I realized what she'd understood since she was 11. The chase wasn't failure. It was step one. I left for college at 18. 3,000 miles away. Different state. Different time zone. Different life. The night before I left, my mom hugged me in the driveway and tried not to cry. Madison didn't hug me, she just stared toward the street like she was waiting for something to appear. That was the same night I found the letter in the mailbox. White envelope. No stamp. Not mailed, delivered. Inside. No baby drawing. No signature. Just a sentence. You ran once. Let's see if you still can. And below it, in the corner, the number. 19. My age. Up to date. Like the list was still being revised. I reported it. Campus police made a note. The officer who read it said, probably a prank. Dorm hazing. You'll be fine. False safety is worse than no safety. It makes you lower your guard. So I adapted instead. I sat with my back to walls. Recorded license plates that passed my dorm on repeat routes. Memorized exits before entering rooms. I learned how to notice the kind of stillness predators make. I dated no one. I walked nowhere alone. I slept with a light on and shoes by the bed, just in case I had to run. Madison used to FaceTime me once a week just to ask one question. Have you seen anything? Not how are you? Not how's school? Just that. As if we were still being hunted. We were. We just didn't know how close. The real break came when Madison called me one night, whispering like someone was in the room with her. Ellie, he never stopped drawing. I sat up in bed. She continued. 2 kids on Willow Creek went missing last year. Another one this spring. One from our old school. All under 12. all within 7 miles of the camper site. I didn't breathe. She wasn't finished. I found something. Online. An old arrest report from Arizona in 1997. Guy found living in an abandoned RV covered in drawings of babies with names written under them. Case dismissed. He fled before the hearing. Same pattern. Same medium. Same style. But the report listed one detail we never knew. He only draws the children he already watched once in person. Never from imagination. That meant when he wrote our names, he had already seen us. Not once. Multiple times. 3 weeks later, Madison disappeared. No note. No call. No forced entry. No struggle. Room clean. Laptop open on her desk. Phone still plugged in. Like she just stepped out of the world. Police called it voluntary absence. Mom called everyone she knew. I called the detective who worked our case. His silence was the loudest answer. I already knew what took her. Not a person. A pattern. The funeral wasn't a funeral. You can't bury someone when you don't have a body. But 2 months later, I received a package. No return address. Inside. A sketchbook. Pages filled with the same deformed baby. Everyone dated. Some smudged. Some in perfect lines. Some stained. And on the very last page, a drawing of Madison. Not a baby. Her. At age 21. Eyes closed. Hair tied back. A line under it. Madison Carter, finished. My hand shook so violently I almost tore the page. But it wasn't the drawing that destroyed me. It was the next page. Blank at first glance, until I tilted it toward the window. Because pressed into the page, drawn so lightly it was almost invisible, was the first line of a new drawing. My face. Older. Hair longer. Mouth closed. And under it, Ellie Carter, not yet. Not finished. Not forgotten. Pending. I moved again. Changed my number. Lived in motion like prey does. But you can't outrun a story you're already inside. Last week, I moved into a new apartment. New state. New locks. New alarm code. I was unpacking when I noticed something stuck between the slats of the air vent. A folded paper. Brown pencil. Old, smudged. I already knew what it was before I opened it. Not a baby this time. A door. Drawn slightly open. And inside the doorway, a shadow. Underneath. You keep moving houses. I keep drawing doors. And beneath that, in fresh, darker strokes. See you on the next page. Part 2, The Bell Ringer, Oregon. Blackwood Forest, Oregon. Most people think the woods are quiet. They are not. They breathe. They echo. They repeat the wrong sounds back at you a second too late, like the forest is trying to learn your voice. I grew up in Blackwood. Not the town, the forest. My dad was a park ranger for 27 years. I hiked before I could spell the word. I could tell the time by the shape of the shadows between cedar trunks. I could name 3 kinds of moss before I could count to 10. The woods were home. Until the night they stopped feeling like they knew me back. It happened the first week of June, the same month I came back from my first year of college. Dad called it decompression from civilization. I called it free food and no dorm fire alarms. By day, everything was the same. The trails. The creeks. The old burnt tree stump where I found my first pocket knife. Nothing had changed. Except one thing. The silence. Not the good kind. Not the restful kind. The kind that feels arranged. Like something is listening first. The first time I heard the bell, I thought it was just distance playing tricks. Metal carries weird in the woods. It was 4:30 p.m., sky fading to that late summer amber, and I was alone past Mirror Lake. Ding. A single bell chime. Not loud. Not close. Just wrong. There were no cows here. No cabins. Nobody who would hang a bell in the middle of a national forest. I stopped walking. Then. Ding. 7 seconds. Ding. 7 seconds. Ding. Like a metronome. Like a ritual. Every chime exactly 7 heartbeats apart. I turned toward the sound, expecting to see something. A hiker. An animal. A metal wind chime caught on a branch. Instead, I found a clearing. And in the middle of it, a fox. Dead. But it wasn't the death that froze me. It was the stitching. Someone had cut its head off and then sewn it back on backward, using what looked like rusted wire. Its eyes were wide open. Pointed toward the sound of the bell. Like it had been staged that way. Like the fox had been made into an audience. My stomach twisted. I backed away. The bell stopped. The forest held its breath. And then, all at once, the woods sounded normal again. Birds. Wind. Branches. Like someone hit resume. I didn't tell my dad. Not because I wasn't scared. But because I didn't know how to explain a dead fox posed like it knew something I didn't. The second time I heard the bell, it wasn't afternoon. It was night. A storm had rolled in, the kind that shakes roofs and makes trees bend like nervous people. Around 6 p.m., Dad sent me out to secure some equipment down by the trail entrance, just a 10-minute job. I never made it back in 10. Halfway down the trail, something slapped me in the face. Wet. Heavy. Cold. I thought it was a branch. Then I looked up. It wasn't a branch. It was the fox. The same fox. Hanging upside down from a tree limb by wire. Its head still backwards. Its body soaked in rain. Its mouth full of something. A folded piece of paper jammed between its teeth. I pulled it out with shaking hands. For words. You went wrong way. All caps. All letters uneven. Like carved instead of written. No signature. No explanation. And then. Ding. That same bell tone. Closer this time. Ding. 5 seconds. Ding. For seconds. No longer 7 seconds apart. Faster. Approaching. Rain hitting leaves didn't mask it. Thunder didn't drown it. The bell wasn't in the distance anymore. It was coming toward me. I ran. Not because I'm a coward. Because instinct is older than pride. I ran until my lungs tore, until mud soaked through my socks, until branches clawed my arms like they were trying to grab pieces of me for later. I didn't look back. Not until I heard the bell again, but this time, it wasn't from the forest. It was from my phone. I pulled it out, thinking maybe Dad had called. No call. No text. No alert. Just the sound of a bell. Coming from the speaker. Like someone was already on the line. Like someone was already connected. The bell kept ringing through the phone. Perfect rhythm. Ding. 3 seconds. Ding. 2. Ding. Something was getting closer without running. Something that didn't need speed. Something that had time. I finally broke through the trees and onto the dirt road near the ranger station. Dad's truck headlights cut through the storm. He was out of the truck, yelling my name, waving me over. And I swear, for half a second, the bell stopped. Not because it was over. Because it was waiting. As if it had reached the edge of where it was allowed to follow. Like there were rules. Rules I had just barely escaped by stepping into the light. Dad grabbed my shoulders. What happened? You look like you saw a ghost. I didn't know how to answer. Because what I saw wasn't a ghost. Ghosts don't hang foxes. Ghosts don't stitch with wire. Ghosts don't carry bells. Ghosts don't leave notes. People do. But people don't move like that sound moved. That night, I couldn't sleep. The storm died. The world went still again. I kept replaying it. The fox. The message. The bell inside the phone. I eventually drifted off around 3 a.m. But at 3:27, I woke up. No sound. Just a feeling. You know the one, when your body knows something before your brain remembers how to be afraid. I checked my phone. One notification. Unknown number. No name. Just one text. You ran too. Good. And underneath it? A single emoji. Bell. The sound that follows. Sleep didn't come back after the text. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying the same question. How did he get my number? I hadn't posted it. Hadn't written it down anywhere public. Hadn't even given it to some of my friends from college. But he had it. And he'd used it. Not to speak. Just to ring. The next morning, Dad made coffee like nothing had happened. He believed in two things. Most things have a logical explanation. The forest never hides evil, people do. So when I told him about the note inside the fox's mouth, and the bell, and the text, he didn't tell me I was imagining it. He didn't laugh. He just said, if someone is hunting, they always leave a trail. You just have to decide whether you want to follow it, or make them think you're still lost. Dad had always talked in metaphor. I used to think it was just ranger wisdom. Now I heard the fear hiding inside it. We went back out to the clearing later that afternoon. The fox was gone. Not dragged off by animals, cleanly removed. No blood. No disturbed leaves. Just absence. Like someone cleaned the forest the way a surgeon cleans a wound. Dad crouched and studied the ground. That wasn't some random sicko, he said quietly. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. I asked him what he meant. He didn't look up. Wolves don't pose corpses. People don't either, unless they want to send a message. The question is whether the message was meant for the animal. He finally met my eyes. Or for you. That was the moment I stopped pretending this was about a fox. The second message came the next day. Not on a phone. Not in a clearing. But in our house. Dad and I returned from town to find a package on the porch. No return address. No label. Just a small wooden box, tied shut with twine. Dad didn't want me to touch it. But he used to disarm bear traps with his hands, curiosity always won over caution. He cut the string. Opened the box. Inside. A brass bell. Small. Hand-sized. Old. Engraved with one word along the rim. Hale. Our last name. Below it, wrapped in paper, another note. Same handwriting. All capitals. All uneven. Every bell has a name. Every name has an end. Dad held the box like it had teeth. Then he reached in and flipped the bell over. There was something carved on the bottom. A number. 72. Just that. No explanation. We didn't know what it meant. Not yet. That night, Dad didn't sleep either. He stayed at the kitchen table, staring at the bell like it was a ticking bomb only he could hear. Around 1 a.m., he finally spoke. You need to understand something. This isn't an animal case. This isn't even a threat. This is a pattern. I asked him what he meant. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. When you were 11, 3 hikers went missing near Mirror Lake. Bodies were never found. But we did find something else. He got up. Walked to the garage. Came back with a dusty cardboard file box. Inside were photographs. Dozens of them. Not of people. Of bells. Hung from trees. Buried in dirt. Placed on rocks like grave markers. Every one carved with a number. Dad flipped through them until he found the one he wanted. A bell, half covered in wet leaves. Carved on the side. 41. I asked what the number meant. He answered without looking at me. That was the 41st missing person reported in this forest over 20 years. My skin went cold. Dad, are you saying all 72 bells are victims? His voice cracked. And someone is counting. I wanted to leave. Pack a bag, disappear, do what prey does best, escape. Dad didn't let me. You run now, you vanish. Like the rest of them. He leaned in closer. But if you stay, we learn the rules. I didn't ask what happens if we don't. Because I already knew. 2 days later, we found the first human body. Or what was left of it. Dad wasn't the one who found it. A couple hiking off-trail did. They called the station screaming. By the time we arrived, the sheriff was already there, pale and sweating. The body was hanging from a cedar branch. Not by a rope. By a twisted chain of bells, all linked together through the jawbone. The head was tilted back, mouth open. Inside the mouth, the same rusted wire stitching from the fox. And carved into the forehead. 67. The same numbering system. Ascending. Which meant 72 wasn't a random number. It was a countdown. I checked the bell we'd received again that night. Hail. 72. We weren't victim number 72. We were the last one left. I didn't sleep for 2 nights. Neither did Dad. The woods weren't woods anymore. They were a clock. A ritual. A waiting room for something that didn't kill at random, it killed in order. And we were the final line. The third message came the next morning. Left inside our mailbox. Not a letter this time. A map. Hand-drawn. With an X. No note. No instructions. Just a date written in the corner. Tonight. Part 3, The Stalker in Ohio. ASHWOOD, Ohio, Pop 4912. Some towns are quiet because nothing bad happens there. Ashwood isn't quiet for that reason. Ashwood is quiet because everyone already knows what happened. And no one wants to be the one to say it out loud again. My mother has lived here for 42 years. 30 of those years she spent inside the same bakery, piping sugar roses onto cakes for people who aged, married, divorced, and died in the same 10-mile radius. She believes in 3 things. The oven never lies. People always show who they are if you watch long enough. Lock your doors, even in daylight. The newest rule. The last one didn't exist until Victor Crane entered her life. He was just a customer at first. Came in every Thursday at 9:15 a.m. Always ordered the same thing, lemon loaf, black coffee, extra napkins, please. He was polite. Too polite. Like every sentence was rehearsed and he was waiting to see how it landed. Mom used to call him the conversationalist. Said he talked like someone who had read about being human but wasn't sure how it worked in practice. She didn't mean it as an insult. She does now. The shift happened slowly, not overnight, not cinematic. Creeps don't start with threats. They start with knowing too much. Week 3, he greeted her by name, even though she'd never told him. Week 4, he recited her birthday out loud, as a memory trick. Week 5, he mentioned her old address. The one she lived in before I was born. Mom laughed it off. People in small towns remember things, right? But by week 8, even the sugar in the shop felt heavy. That was the day he leaned in and said, "We care about the same things. I know more about you than anyone else ever will. Not I want to know you. Not I feel close to you. I already know you. Ownership disguised as intimacy. Mom told me later. That's the moment I realized he wasn't learning me. He was cataloging me. The first real breach happened on a Tuesday. She came home from work and noticed the curtain in the living room was exactly 1 inch shorter than she left it. Nothing else was touched. Nothing was missing. But the curtain was raised. Perfectly measured. Someone had looked inside. Deliberately. Neatly. A week later, she got the first envelope. No stamp. No return address. Inside, a printed document. Her entire Wi-Fi network info. Password. Router model. IP address. The paper smelled faintly of her house. Meaning it wasn't hacked. It was taken. From inside. Mom called me that night, voice shaking like I hadn't heard since Dad died. She didn't say I'm scared. She said, something is being built around me and I don't know what the shape of it is yet. That's how stalking works. Not a strike. A structure. One brick at a time until you look up and realize it's not around you anymore. It's on top of you. The second envelope came 1 week later. Not printed this time. A photograph. Mom sleeping. Taken from outside her bedroom window. Timestamp, 3:08 a.m. She wears earplugs. She never heard him. The back of the photo had one sentence. You sleep beautifully. I waited for the right angle. She called the police. They took a report. The officer said the thing officers always say before they go back to their car and forget. We'll keep an eye out. No one ever does. Then came the box. Delivered on St. Patrick's Day, left on her porch. Green ribbon. Handwritten tag. A gift you lost. Inside. Her wedding ring. The same ring that went missing from my father's body at the funeral. She'd assumed some funeral worker stole it. She had never told anyone that it disappeared. Victor did. Along with the ring was a note. It cost me $10,000 to end a marriage for you. The least you can do is agree to dinner. No threats. Not yet. Just a transaction. As if her life was a bill he'd already paid. That was when I moved in. Not out of guilt. Out of certainty. Because men like Victor Crane don't break in to hurt you. They break in to belong to you. And when you don't let them belong, that's when they break you. The third envelope came while I was home. This time not a photo. A blueprint. A house layout. His house. He had mapped a bunker underneath it. A full underground room. Soundproof. One way in. No way out. Walls covered in photos of my mother. Not just from this year. A lifetime of images. Some from events she didn't even remember attending. Some from before she ever met him. Meaning this wasn't 8 weeks of obsession. This was 30 years of construction. That night, Mom didn't cry. She didn't panic. She just said, if a man watches you long enough, he starts believing you were supposed to be his from the beginning. Then she added the sentence that still makes my blood go cold. But what scares me isn't what he wants from me. It's what he thinks I already agreed to. The police arrested him 2 days later. Illegal surveillance. Breaking and entering. Threats. They searched his house. Found the bunker. Found 400 photographs of my mother from 1987 to now. Found a list of dates labeled Annual Collection. The earliest entry, 1989. The latest entry was blank. Next to it, the label. The 17th of March, final. The case made local news. The town pretended to be shocked. People brought Mom flowers. The detective said, he'll be locked up for a while. We wanted to believe that. We really did. Until the first postcard arrived. No return address. Stamped from a different state. Only 3 words on the back. Still waiting, Lillian. Mailed on March 17th. The date he called final. If this were a movie, Victor Crane would have stayed in jail. But reality doesn't follow the horror rules we wish were true. Reality follows the ones we ignore. They sentenced him to 11 months. Not for stalking. Not for surveillance. Not for the bunker built with intent. Just for trespassing plus unauthorized recording devices. Because you can't charge someone with what they haven't done yet. That's the flaw. A stalker isn't stopped until the ending becomes violent enough to prove that the beginning was. And by then, it's not called stalking anymore. It's called evidence. Month 5, Mom stopped baking. Not at the shop, at home. She said she didn't want flour on her hands if she needed to dial 911. Month 7, she stopped going outside alone. Not because she feared being seen. Because she feared being watched first. Month 9, she installed cameras. Then covered them with tape. Because you can't tell who's watching the watcher. Month 11, Victor got out. Early release. Good behavior. The same hands that nailed cameras inside our walls qualified as well behaved. The sheriff called the day before his release. No warning. No plan. Just a courtesy notification. He's legally not allowed within 200 yards of your mother's residence. 200 yards. That's 2 football fields. A distance someone like Victor could cover in 16 seconds. Mom didn't say anything for a long time. Just nodded. Hung up. Went to the bedroom. When she came back out, she was holding a showbox. Inside were every postcard he ever sent. All postmarked on March 17th. Every year. Different states. Same message. Still waiting. She closed the lid and said, "Men like him don't count days. They collect them." 2 nights after his release, I was the one who found the first sign. Not Mom. Me. I was locking the bakery at closing time when I noticed the reflection in the glass door. Not someone watching. Something placed. A cupcake box. Plain white. No ribbon. No label. Left exactly where I would step unless I was looking down. I opened it. Inside. A single cupcake. Green frosting. Shamrock sprinkles. St. Patrick's Day colors. And under the wrapper, a note, folded to the size of a thumbnail. "You were always part of this, Harper. You just didn't notice your turn." I dropped it. Not out of fear. Out of recognition. Because the handwriting wasn't new. It matched the notes Victor used to leave Mom. Meaning the game didn't restart. It just shifted players. The next day, the police said, he hasn't violated the distance order. Because the cupcake was left 201 yards from the property line. 1 yard of legality. A mile of intent. That night, I checked the cameras. Every one of them was still taped over. Mom didn't want to know if someone was watching. I did. I peeled one open. The feed loaded. Black at first. Then static. Then, a face. Not Victor's. Mine. Sleeping. From overhead. A live camera angle from my bedroom ceiling. Meaning the feed wasn't hacked. The camera wasn't bypassed. It was replaced. He'd already been inside. Not now. Before. Before I even thought about looking. I froze. Not because of the video. Because of the timestamp. For 12 a.m. 3 nights ago. I checked the angle again. I wasn't alone in the frame. There was a shadow in the corner of the room. Not moving. Just standing. Just watching. Like I was a test subject sedated under glass. I played the feed again, full screen. This time, I watched the full recording. No jump cuts. No fast forward. Just a long, silent file. At the 2-minute mark, the shadow moved. Slow. Purposeful. Walked to the edge of my bed. Bent down. And instead of touching me, he adjusted the blanket. Straightened it. Like he was tucking me in. Then, just before leaving the frame, he turned toward the camera. Not directly. Just enough to show the corner of a face. And a smile. Not for pleasure. For possession. The kind people give when they believe. This is already mine. You just haven't accepted it yet. I paused the video. Zoomed in. Every frame blurred. But one detail was clear. He wasn't wearing gloves. Which meant he wanted to leave fingerprints. Which meant he believed he didn't need to hide them anymore. Which meant this wasn't a warning. It was a transition. Mom wasn't the target anymore. I was. I showed the footage to the police. They said, "There's no proof that's Victor. Could be anyone." They said, "Do you have proof this wasn't staged?" They said, "Why didn't you call us while it was happening?" Because I was asleep. Because the only people who get protected are the ones already dead enough to be newsworthy. Because the system doesn't guard you from danger. It just verifies you experienced it afterward. That night, I moved my bed. Not away from the door. Away from the ceiling. Because now I understood. Locks don't matter when a person has been in your house long enough to learn the layout of your breath. Distance doesn't matter when someone has memorized your floor plan, your schedule, your ways of being human. It's not about entry anymore. It's about access. And Victor already had it. Long before we knew he existed. Mom said something that night I will never forget. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't crying. She was calm in a way I'd never seen before, the kind of calm that only comes after acceptance, not safety. He waited for me 30 years. He'll wait for you longer. Men like him don't stop when they are caught. They stop when the story ends exactly how they pictured it. Then she reached for my hand. And whispered. The question isn't whether he comes back. It's whether he thinks you're going to run. Or stay and let him finish the ending he already wrote. Stalkers don't disappear. They go silent. Silence is their favorite part, the pause that makes you twitch at every doorknob, every creak, every shadow that stays too long. Victor Crane went silent for 19 days. No envelopes. No calls. No footsteps in the hallway at 3 a.m. Just quiet. Quiet that felt like breathing on the other side of the wall. Mom stopped speaking entirely. She didn't bake. She didn't sit. She listened. And on the morning of March 16th, she said, "It'll be tomorrow. Not if. Not maybe. It will. Because every postcard, every letter, every threat was sent on March 17th. St. Patrick's Day. The day he calls the final. Candle hash March 17 to 12:14 a.m. We didn't sleep. We didn't turn off the lights. We waited. Mom in her chair near the front window. Me in the hallway with a hammer in my hand, like that would matter against a man who spent 30 years planning a single moment. The house wasn't a home anymore. It was a container. A place he knew better than we did. The wind moved. The neighborhood stayed still. No footsteps. No car. And then, a knock. Soft. Not pounding. Almost polite. 3 taps. As if asking permission. Mom looked at me. Not scared. Resolved. She mouthed, "Call 911. I shook my head. Because I already knew. By the time police arrived, whatever happened would already be over. Candle hash 12:15 a.m. Mom opened the door. Not all the way. Just enough. Victor Crane stood on the porch. Same calm stare. Same slow smile. Same posture of a man who never believed he was intruding, only collecting what belonged to him. He wasn't holding a weapon. He was holding a cake box. Like a gift. He looked past my mother, straight at me, and said, "Well, there you are. I was afraid she wouldn't share you." Mom didn't move. Her voice didn't shake. "You need to leave." Victor blinked like she'd used the wrong verb. "Leave? Lillian, I already came back." Then he tapped the cake box once. Like a trainer signaling a dog. "You'll want to see what's inside. It's something you lost." Mom didn't open it. She stepped back, slowly, carefully, and said, "Harper, go to the kitchen. Now." I didn't. Because Victor said something then that made my entire body freeze. "No. Let her stay. The ending is for her. Not you. Her." Something shifted. Not in him. In Mom. Her voice dropped into something I hadn't heard before. Not fear, not anger, but acceptance. "You don't want me anymore." Victor smiled. Not wide. Just enough. "You were the rehearsal. She's the legacy." That was the moment everything finally aligned. It was never about possession. It was about succession. About choosing someone young enough to last longer. A stalker doesn't want one life. He wants a timeline. And I was the sequel. Candle #12:18 a.m. Mom did something I didn't expect. She stepped outside and closed the door behind her. I lunged forward. She shook her head once, the kind of look that says run or I'll make you regret staying. She spoke through the glass. "Calm. Final. Harper. Call the police. Then go to the basement and wait. Do not come back up. No matter what you hear." Victor didn't look at me anymore. He looked at her like a man who'd finally reached the end of a road no one else could see. And said, "I kept my promise. I waited." Mom replied, "And I'm keeping mine." Then she opened the cake box herself. Inside. Not cake. Not a threat. Her own wedding ring. The original one. The one stolen from Dad's body. The one he kept for years just to deliver it at the end. A trophy returned. Not in apology. In ownership. "Put it on," Victor said softly. "I told you I'd give you back what was yours." Mom looked at the ring. Then at him. And for the first time in 30 years. She smiled. Not kindly. Almost cruelly. "You misunderstood something, Victor." He blinked. She leaned closer. "I never belonged to you. You belonged to the chase. And now the chase is over." Then she reached into her coat pocket. And pulled out something small and black. Pepper spray? No. A gun. The one she took from Dad's old Ranger locker. The one Victor never knew she had. She didn't warn him. She didn't wait. She shot him once in the chest. Point blank. He fell. Not fast. Almost gently. Like a puppet losing the hand that held it up. Candle silence. No bell. No scream. No final monologue. Just stillness. And then. The smallest sound. Tap. A bell. Rolling across the porch. He'd kept it in his pocket. Like Jasper's bell. Like Ellie's scribbled future. Engraved with one word. Harper. Underneath it. Next. Candle #12:32 a.m. Police arrive. They ruled it self-defense. Case closed. Newspapers said. Local widow kills longtime stalker during home intrusion. Neighbors said. I knew he was unstable. Police said. You're safe now. They always say that after the danger is already dead. But the danger wasn't Victor Crane. Victor was the carrier. The sickness was something deeper. The twisted belief that obsession is a form of fate. That ownership is a form of love. That the next girl is already waiting. Candle # 7 days later. Mom is quieter now. Not relieved. Just finished. She leaves the house only for groceries and funerals. But me? I got the first postcard today. No name. No return address. Just a postmark from a different state. And 3 words. Still waiting, Harper. Under it, in faint pencil. 17/3. The date didn't die with him. The ritual didn't die with him. Nothing ended. It just reassigned.